Greetings and salutations to all you folks out there. We're in for round 2 of the Galaxy Cup Tournament Qualifiers. Basically, in a couple weeks from now, the top 4 slots from each of the 4 qualifiers are going to be competing for a rather large cash prize pool, along with some other stuff to do with the FAF client avatars and whatnot. So all these guys are just competing for slots in that final tournament. Right now, we've got Mephi versus Yudi, who both have drawn Cybran through the random faction poll. And Mephi is on the north side. I think these were also random slots. Yudi on the south. The map is Crag Dunes, and this one is a bit difficult to play. I'm pulling up the build queue here for Mephi, who is going triple land factory. You can see he's got 5 power generators. Looks like let's see, one more second land, several more power, and a third land factory. No mass extractors right off the bat, but that is because there's a ton of reclaim available in these wrecks right here, more in the gaps, and then also transports and whatnot all around this place. So while there are quite a few mass extractors on the map, the early builds are going to be pretty much entirely dependent on how efficient the reclaim can be both gotten and put to use by these players. Yudi is queuing up a total of 4 land factories and an air factory from his ACU, which means that it's not going to be put into the fight for quite some time. Kind of an odd choice, seeing as your ACU can single-handedly hold down either one of the choke points on this map, but I imagine that he does have a plan and will move forward with it, and that plan does seem to involve a second air factory, possibly early bomber. This could give him a significant advantage over Mephi since he does not have any air. But also, this is a 5-kilometer land map. I'm thinking that even lacking a couple of tanks in the long run could potentially doom you. We got a couple of engineers headed down here from Yudi. Those are going to pick up this hydrocarbon, which is a little ways away from the base, but still definitely something you need to grab, since that is going to give you 100 power income for about the same cost mass-wise as a single T1 power generator. That little mantis was over here to guard those 2 vulnerable expansioneers, but it's now going to pull over to the left-hand side. Maybe get a little bit of raiding going on, who really knows? And speaking of raiding, we do have our first combat force out for Mephi. That's going to be 2 mantis, 1 scout, down to the left, and then nope, that's going to be a total of 4 over there. He's abandoning the right hand side to the open, and he's just going to have a little faith that maybe something won't slip through the cracks while he's busy building his 3rd land factory. These are just going to be pumping out tanks, and that was rather a drastic land factory ordered there. I'm assuming that he is just hoping that he'll have enough reclaim to sustain that moving forward. I am kind of interested to see how that works out for him. We've got a total of 6. Oh no, look, he canceled the air factory there, decided to build on the hydro instead. So Yudi is going to adjust his build on the fly. He's already got 3 land factories online, a 4th halfway, and a 5th begun but not finished. That is going to give him a little bit of a head start on the build power from Mephi, who is just now a quarter of the way complete with his 4th land factory. ACU is just going to miss this little run by. 1 mantis is going to get toasty fried. A blow landed on the other means that these 2 are coming in weakened to the fight and will be easily taken out by the 2 mantis, cleaning up the rear for Yudi. So well done on that denial. Mephi is going to be moving his ACU right, Yudi left, so we'll have to just see how well these players can deny each other as they come to the passes. Looks like this land factory is going to get finished off, bringing the total to a full 6 for Yudi as he abandons this air factory at the singular. We do have an air factory planned for Mephi up on the north as well. Most likely these are just going to be used for a bit of intel, because this game is probably going to be over before it can proceed towards, you know, the T2 air phase or anything even resembling the sort. Yudi's going to drop those 2 mexes. No change of heart. He is going to move up to the front end. Of course, you do need to realize that there are 300 mass, maybe 400 mass of reclaim on each side, so you want to nab those as quickly as possible and prevent your opponent from getting them. I would like to take a look-see at the unit count. So we're going to go over to UD real quick and just select the entire map. It's going to be 14 tanks and 2 artillery. Mephi on the other side has 13 tanks and 5 artillery. So just about neck and neck, 23 to 340 with a mild power stall on UD. Or Mephi, sorry, then UD at 17 and 300. So very, very slightly behind on that, but not by enough to really make a difference. Hold on, set focus army, that's the command that I need. -1 to get back out to the battlefield. We got a T1 bomber in. Unfortunately, no mobile anti-air is in the mix, so probably going to lose several tanks to that, although tanks might not be the most valuable target to go for. That bomber is going to switch it up, lay out a beautiful bombing pattern, almost clipped the third engineer there. He would have gotten all 4 if those had not moved for separation. Unfortunate that he wasn't able to get more, but still, a dent in the build power is a dent regardless. We've got a couple engineers here laying in a point defense that will be able to push back the ACU. Lots and lots of Mantis flowing out from the now 7 land factories at UD's disposal. Mephi probably able to take this many tanks with the units at his back, but he does need to be careful moving into a point defense like that, because you will lose a significant amount of HP on your commander that you cannot afford to be missing when you engage with about 20 tanks or so. UD is going to move up, pushing towards the production on this side. This is a little brave with the ACU. Once you clear this choke point, there is the opportunity to be cut off by units moving around to the rear, but he does have his own little contingent of forces at his back that may be able to save him. He's going to reclaim everything he can get his grubby little mitts on the other side of the map, and that is the most important thing after all. If you make a push and you leave mass on your opponent's side of the map, then you may in fact be dooming yourself. I love the wall sections over here, because your opponent will be able to reclaim those and recycle them into shiny new tanks to use for his very own devices. But if you can make a push like this, reclaim everything on your way out, you're going to be reclaiming not only your own, but also a few of the opponent's tanks as well. That'll get you a few more units on the field and increase the discrepancy between the two of you. Point defense on the left-hand side, things looking very mirrored today. Very mirrored indeed, as the Medusa is able to take out that wall section and point defense there. I love to see a Jester on the map, no matter what the point in the game, but unfortunately that one is going to be relatively undefended on the front, down to about half health under blows from an Interceptor. There is an Inti in the rear, but I think the APM is elsewhere, trying to figure out how to encircle this ACU. I don't think there's enough Mantis here to be able to take that commander, but it is going to drop it down to about 2/3 HP and claim the better part of the reclaim field for UD's edge. Now, UD does have his ACU out relatively alone. Mephi sees that, and he's going to try and swarm the left-hand side with basically all the forces coming out of his land factories. UD's units did go to the north, swept the Hydro and the Mass Extractor, eliminating a pretty good bit of economy from Mephi's disposal, but UD is going to be able to block himself off in the pass. The Mantis are going to flee up towards the north, away from the commander and towards the other intruding forces. Be able to kill those off, get a lot of reclaim in the bank, as on the right-hand side, Mephi is still struggling to hold back this tide of Auroras after having sent all of his forces over to the left. He's not got many to defend with. He is now surrounded. That might be game. It depends on whether or not UD realizes what is going on, and I think he has. He shift G's in on the commander, dealing out a horrendous amount of damage as UD is now forced over to the right. If Mephi can survive this, this is going to be a brilliant punch. No, he is going to go and swarm the ACU. Mephi down to 2,600 as UD decides to focus fire the ACU instead of trying to run by. 1,400 versus 8. Mephi shouting out quality game there as he detonates. I disagree with him. That was actually a pretty good little bit of gameplay there. UD shedding HP in the center, but he is going to survive. The victory sign coming out. So these maps the 5K maps come down to very strategic unit movement and that early build order. If we're taking a look at what's going on around here, I do think UD is missing some units because of the ACU detonation there, but take a look at all of the build power here. We've got 8 total land factories with 1 air factory. On the north side, we have got 5, 8, 12 land factories, which may have not been able to run the entire time, granted. But when the reclaim is coming in, I think Mephi was going to have a pretty significant unit advantage moving forward in that game. Unfortunately, he left his commander out a little bit too alone and paid the price for it going up against that mana spam. Well played to both of these guys. Let's get out of this game and hit another one in the tourney. Next up, we're going to take another game out of the top bracket. This is going to be round 1. Technically, we did round 2 first, but you know, it's a staggered start, so whatever. We have got Plasma Wolf versus Jonas. Jonas, incredibly lucky at some points in the ladder. Sometimes he does shenanigans that are extremely successful, and Plasma, of course, a fairly well-skilled player. I think about 1700 rank on the ladder. We're going to see how these guys match up. Plasma has drawn Aeon. Jonas is Cybran. And Jonas is going for an air factory first. So shenanigans are afoot indeed. That looks like a bomber first run. That is 1 engineer out. Interesting choice. Plasma Wolf is going to open double land, and then it looks like he is not moving his ACU as of yet, so we'll stick around here for just a minute and see what he does. So we've got the engineer to the south, picking up manual reclaim right over this way, something that you definitely should not forget about on the summer duel, because this reclaim can make the difference in the game. I am not exaggerating, because that is enough to get down an extra land factory and quite a few more tanks than you otherwise would be able to. We are going to get a flare out to the north, 2 to be exact. Those are going to go around to the back end and try to either raid or stop a counter raid from the other side. Plasma Wolf dropping a total of 5 power generators and then a second land factory. He is putting off the hydro by quite a bit. Jonas, on the other hand, is going to move up and assist on a freaking Jester build. It isn't even a bomber push. He is just going for the Jesters. This engineer is going to move out and attack move order, grab a couple of trees for a little extra power. I'm going to click over here and see Jonas is stalling for about 47 power income as he struggles to reclaim and make up the difference, but he does have a fair bit of mass in the chamber, so that is not a bad thing at all. Shifting back over to engineer production as he moves his ACU up. He's going to snag that hydro. Something I would comment on this: if he isn't going to build, oh no, that was an air scout, and then an additional interceptor to guard the Jester. I think that this may have been an error. He is picking up flares, which are microwing back and forth as Plasma goes ultimate tryhard. The Jester's actually missing their hits as they zigzag back and forth. The Jester now left in the dust by the targeting, and the flare is going to escape with its life just with the denial on the Jester actually hitting build power. That was worth it right there. What I was about to say is Jonas is making a huge mistake trying to kill that hunter, or the lab rather, flare with the Jester, because that's wasting time that he could be in the base killing build power, and that is going to hurt him quite badly, I think, in the time to come. It looks like Plasma Wolf is going to drop an air factory down on the hydro as Jonas struggles to finish his own hydrocarbon. The engineer is in the mass back here, but that is going to get punched a couple of times by the spirit. Flare fortunately not moving up in time to prevent a lot of that reclaim, but now down the engineer goes. Jester is getting hit up by a mobile anti-air, but no worries on that. He is just going to go ahead and kill off that engineer and then move up into the northern portion. If he gets that mass extractor, he could actually do a fair bit to suppress Plasma, but as you can see, Jonas is just struggling right now to get anything at all online. Let me get back over here and see. Jonas is starting the gun upgrade. He's got 200 power income with a full bar. I think he's being a little bit scatterbrained here. He was going for some extra power, which I really didn't understand at all, and now he's decided to just try to burn it off. But as you can see, he's only going to get about 35% through with the gun upgrade before that gets completely shut down by his lack of power. When you try to go for a gun upgrade this early in the game, we can use this as a learning experience. Your gun upgrade doubles the damage output of your ACU, but it doesn't double your HP pool. So you might be able to fight off, 30, 35 tanks relatively effectively with your gun. And especially on a 5-kilometer map, a gun upgrade is invaluable, to be sure. But in the beginning portion, you're going to see that since he doesn't have additional land factory, since he doesn't have the capability of building more units, we've already got triple the amount of land forces on Plasma's side as Jonas has. Plus, Plasma has more than double the power income of Jonas. So he is going to drop his own gun upgrade now, and you can see that ticking away very quickly indeed as Jonas is struggling to get past 70%, probably stalling like hell. Yes, 128 in the hole, -1. Plasma stalling as well. What on earth are you people doing? Why? Why are you doing this to yourselves? You're supposed to be being good examples, teachable moments for the community, and you're both stalling for more than 100% of your power income. What is this the impact that I'm having? Is this my legacy on the FAF community? That everyone is now going to power stall like me? This is horrid. All right, Jonas closing in on 95% completion on the gun upgrade. Plasma done in advance. Do remember that the Aeon gun is a little bit cheaper than the Cybern one due to the fact that you either get the doubled rate of fire output or you get the range, although it is significantly more range if you get both. But Plasma did beat Jonas, though he started significantly later. That ACU is going to move down to the southern edge, probably push around and try to get into the base itself. We really need to see, yes, more land factories going down, hallelujah, and also more power generators. Remember, you need an additional power generator per land factory that you bring online, and this is not exactly a mass-rich map. So you need to be careful about how many you're bringing online and keep it in line with the amount of mass that you're reclaiming and whatnot. We do have all of this up here that is still not taken in. Jonas is balanced out rather well, actually. Plasma is about the same, negative on both or breaking even, and floating right in the middle of his storage, although that does appear to be a bit of a dive right there. Paused air factory, and we'll try to bring that back in line. Something to think about as you're moving on with your games is that if you put 2 engineers on land factory build and 1 engineer on power generator build, they will build at about the same speed. So you'll be finishing a factory at the same time as you're finishing a power generator in most cases. Plasma has just finished his range upgrade, which means that he is going to be able to kite that Cybern ACU with the gun, and the unit count is still massively advantageous towards Plasma Wolf's side. I'm going to go ahead and bump up the speed of this replay here as we zippity-doo-dah towards the confrontation that is coming. Plasma and Jonas meeting in the battlefield. Plasma, of course, having the benefit of a radar at his disposal. Jonas really needs to ping that radar if he has a hope of combating that ACU, but he is just going to take the dive here, hitting up the tanks around the edges, maybe be able to get a little bit closer to a veteran. C 67 to 48 HP. That is going to be in tie territory as Jonas, I think, rushes forward to his doom. Looks like a little overcharge here, little overcharge there. He's going to pick up a couple of extra units as he does get a veterancy, but now Plasma is going to be free to just pound him into the dirt, surviving by 900 HP after the explosion. Well, that is quite a bit of stuff to look at. Some things not to do, some things to do. Not to do, go gun upgrade on 4 power generators and a hydro. That's a bad time waiting to happen. Things to do, build a balanced amount of land factories for your mass income before you really think about much else in order to get more units on the field. And another do, if you go early, Jester, use it to kill the freaking build power, not the labs. If the labs are coming to your base, your ACU can deal with it. No problemo. use the Jester to gain yourself the maximum possible lead, because if you're using it defensively, you've just killed your entire build order. Also, maybe don't go first Jester. Well played to both these guys, and Plasma is going to advance on in the winner's bracket. Giannis dropping to the losers. Welcome to the losers bracket. We're going to be looking at a map called Lake of Rock, which I have never seen before in my life. And the components of this match, opponents in this match are Platinumizer and Giannis. I'm just going to call him Platinum because I don't really feel like going through the difficulty of pronunciation on every single instance of that. Platinum is UEF on the bottom side, going land first, air second on a pretty conservative 7 power generators, considering that he does have access to a whole hell of a lot of reclaim of the tree variety. That is definitely a broken pathway, so there is a hydro available, but you do have to drop it. This is one thing that perhaps UEF drones could be useful for. A lot of times UEF drones don't ever get used, the shoulder drones I mean, but if you are in this kind of situation, nah, never mind. You need the air factory anyway. I was gonna say, if you wanted to just like go land navy and push air off, you could go shoulder drone and build a land factory up here, but I don't think that that is entirely advisable. That would be on the level of the shenanigans that we saw last time with the early Jester. Speaking of, Giannis is on the north. He is air factory first with 4 power generators, building 2 engineers to go out and reclaim, and going Jester first again. Although on this map, I think it might be a bit more beneficial than it was on the last one, considering the fact that he's got a naval mass in between him and his opponent that his opponent cannot hover across, being UEF, so he will be able to go across and raid with that Jester, and then he will be able to build a transport relatively early and get the units on that plateau, as well as this other one where there is a perfectly smooth mesa top that is 4 mexes and 1 hydro, same on the south, and then another island over here with a handful of mexes and yet another hydro. So, should each player be able to claim the entirety of the map for themselves, they actually get 4 hydros and a buttload of mass extractors, but we'll just have to see how successful these guys really are. As far as reclaim goes, we've got large rocks out in the center of the water, and then in the base we've got some large boulders as well. Giannis is going to get that Jester in, and that's going to take out the Expansioneer on that side as a mobile anti-air comes up. He's also going to be able to deny the naval factory that was being built there, so that's going to slow that down quite a fair bit. And the Jester moves over to the left, pinging off the engineer that was just about to complete the hydro, and he's going to get the other Expansioneer as well, fleeing the mobile anti-air to deal a little more damage to the hydro, and then pick up another engineer. So this is actually quite brilliant as early Jesters go. Giannis is only slightly behind on his initial expansion and will now be able to expand more quickly than his opponent, having killed off basically all the engineers that he had at his disposal. Love the manual reclaim on the groups of trees there. Giannis getting another naval factory, or air factory, sorry, not naval factory, down. 2 land factories in the works. And then he's also got a patrolling scout over his head, which may cause some issues later, but he should be able to plink out with one of these inties. So he does have 2 interceptors on the field to 1 from his opponent, and he is just kind of hovering over this plateau to see what comes that way. This is actually a map that could be beneficial for Cybrant, because at some point you are going to need frigates. I think this is too large of a map to not go for it, and that is the upgrade that I was waiting for. Torpedo on the Cybrant ACU, but I think that, again, this is far, far too early. Giannis drastically underestimating the amount of power that he has. I hope that he doesn't sit here and stall through this upgrade once again. Please feather that pause button if you don't mind, good sir. It would actually be very helpful indeed to wait until he gets a transport out, because he can drop pairs of engineers on each of the plateaus, get 3 additional hydros for a combined 400 power income just off the hydros, and he would be able to fight this much more effectively. Platinum has decided to dive with his ACU directly into the home base of Jonas, which does seem like an actually quite nice idea, because he's going to be able to harass without much risk. You can pretty safely assume that your enemy has not built a whole lot of land units, since you're not expecting to have tanks on your shore. I mean, why would you? So now this ACU is going to be able to just peek out of the water and wreak havoc. Jonas, of course, does know that the ACU is there. He is building a point defense in his trademark little bow tie wall configuration as he does creep past 30% on the ACU's torpedo upgrade as he abandons his power build. Jonas, please, please, for the love of all that is holy, just build some power. Please. If you build power, then you have power to finish your torpedo upgrade, and you're trying to reclaim subs with all of your engineers, and you canceled a 30% upgrade as Platinum is now going to reclaim Jonas's factory on the other side, getting a tasty little bit of mass, eliminating some build power, and then harassing more engineers. This is just utterly cringeworthy as engineers start falling to the Tiger Shark that is hammering that side. I do hope that he is able to do something useful with this, because that was so much waste in the early game. The Jester is gone. The map is being claimed. It looks like Platinum is ever so slightly ahead of where Jonas is at on total map claim. I really, really desperately wish for a transport out of this factory at some point in the near future, because this is getting so completely absurd. Platinum just going to sit in the water out here. 2 subs now out of the factory as Platinum drops a naval factory right offshore. He is going to go for the full lock. And Jonas, of course, is not going to be able to do much with those artillery, since he does have to stay on the shore. Now, Jonas, what I would recommend here is, again, get to the freaking plateaus, get your hydros built, get the torpedo upgrade, and then walk in the water, instead of just standing in the water with T1 subs hammering your ACU, shedding HP that will be very valuable later, and trying to build a torpedo launcher for which you probably don't have the power. Yep, there it is. Minus 18 power, plus 2 on mass, and Platinum is about to overflow 15 mass, 19 mass as well. Why? These are 15 and 1200 rated players. I don't understand what's going on right now. How can you both overflow and stall at the same time? I'm not trying to be mean here. I have the utmost of respect for at least one of these players. I've never met Platinumizer before, unless it's a rename of someone that I have played with at some point. But Jonas should know better than this. He's beaten me at ladder matches before, and I just simply don't understand what's going on right here. He's standing in the water so he can take torpedo hits while being above the water so he can take frigate hits, and trying for an upgrade that is going to take him at least 2 minutes to finish, because he still doesn't have any freaking power, and he cancels it a second time, having to move out of the water due to the Tiger Sharks once again. There's now T2 air coming from the other side. Platinumizer, of course, having his issues, but is doing some things right here. And Jonas taking the Control K. Oh my goodness. Oh, my brain hurts. Learning experience, Brink. Bring something good out of this. Okay. If you're on a map that you haven't played before and you don't know what to do on, don't do shenanigans, because shenanigans get you killed when you don't have a build for them. So, do a stable build, evaluate the map, figure out where your reclaim is. If it's a map that is split like this, you need air, because they're going to be either assaulting you with transports or with hover arty/hover tanks, and you need to get a naval factory in the water to get frigates. So, frigates, air, top priorities on this map. Then when you see that half the mass extractors and 3/4 of the hydros are on the plateaus, you need an early transport. for which you need early air. So I think if Jonas had gone transport instead of Jester after 6 engineers to just get 2 engineers on each plateau, he would have done infinitely better this game. Also, don't stand in the water when you upgrade something as long as a torpedo upgrade, and do not start an ACU upgrade with sub 300 power. Just don't do it. Please. Save us all some trouble and don't do it. All right, hopefully everybody learned something from this train wreck. Let's get out of this game and into another one. Let's get a move on with the losers bracket. I believe this is round 3 or so. It is going to be Mephi versus Plasma Wolf on the Desert Arena. And this map is a fast and furious one indeed. I'm going to press Control Shift, and there is your heat map for the Reclaim, which is absolutely monstrous. Both players have drawn Seraphim on the random faction pull, and Plasma is going to go for double land factory open with a healthy amount of power generators for some adjacency later on, although why he's not building his factories in for actual mechs adjacency, I'm not sure. Although mass really shouldn't be an issue in the early portion of the game. You should be able to reclaim yourself out of just about any situation. Mephi's on the north side. He is going to be dropping a land factory in the double adjacent slot, and then moving up to a hydro rush instead of going for the power generator build. So this is going to be non-hydro versus hydro build. We'll see which one of those comes out better. And basically, this map is all about who can build the most land factories and balance their reclaiming engineers with their production of land forces the best. So that is going to be manual reclaim orders out, because of course manual reclaim does happen slightly faster than the attack move does. So you're going to get a little bit more mass in your bank account just a hair quicker, but that does require a bit more APM, so it does have its drawbacks. You can see the attack move order placed there after the manual reclaim runs out. Hydro has begun, and Plasma is going to be on his merry way of building the units. So that is going to leave Mephi completing his Hydro, ringing in a mass extractor for early T2, which I have no idea why he's actually doing that. That seems to be a fairly poor choice of things to go for when he could be building more land factories instead. And he's going to be queuing a total of 8 land factories right off the bat with a handful of power generators to make things work. This map tends to either be decided by T1 spam, or sometimes in the case of Seraphim versus other players, it'll be like Gun Ilshi decides the map. I've not seen this one get to T3 land very often, although it does happen. So we'll see what happens since both of the players are Seraphim. Now, you might be tempted to go jump for the big rocks in the middle early on, but do bear in mind that whether you're reclaiming tiny rocks or reclaiming the big rocks, the mass is about the same, and when you have this much in your base, there's really not a reason to move up towards the front. Plasma Wolf does have his Hydro online. He's finishing his 2nd and 3rd land factory at basically the same time, running into his 4th and 5th, although he doesn't have a large quantity scaled quite yet. This is a sneaky little scout right here. Mephi has planted this thing on the other side, I would imagine, to determine whether or not his opponent is going to go for an air factory, because he'll see that bomber coming early, he can queue an anti-air unit on the other side, and life will be decent for him. He's not doing any reclaiming right now. He's decided that he has enough mass for the moment, and he's going to build more land factories, bringing number 3 and number 4 online, as he moves his ACU up to grab a couple of mass extractors and move around to the right side of the arena. Mephi also getting 4 mass extractors online up there. And now finally moving in to get some reclaim. Let me get over on this thing. Plasma Wolf, 209 income. 200 power 9 mass, that is, with 1600 already in the bank on reclaim. Mephi barely cracking 600 on the reclaim, but at 15 and 220 ahead on both of the other resources. So total this game, Mephi has actually spent less mass to date and is a little bit behind in the build power. So right now, Plasma is doing pretty dang well for himself on resource management. Let me go back out here so we can see everybody. And Plasma Wolf is going to be able to front 2 tanks versus the 1 and the scout right up this way. However, there are more tanks coming in from the left. So he is temporarily going to be outnumbered, at least just enough to eliminate one of the tanks. A brilliant bit of micro there from Mephi, saving that tank alive on 16 HP. And that is now going to threaten Plasma Wolf's expansion on the right. However, I would like to point out that he is in full control of the southern side and expanding almost as rapidly as Mephi. So Mephi is looking like he's a bit more intent on grabbing the Hydros, getting his mass extractors claimed, going for that double adjacency on 4 land factories in each segment, which is going to be nice because later on, if he does make it to the T2 phase, he can go for T2 support factories on these, and that is going to bump up his production quite a bit for free. And Plasma Wolf is now assisting his second Hydro online, even though Mephi is about to drop his third. So Plasma still ahead in score, sustaining himself on reclaim. Who needs map expansion when you have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of mass practically in your base? And this lonely engineer out here on the right building that land factory and then queuing for a point events. Those factories are going to be a long time coming indeed as Mephi continues to scale. That engineer is dead meat, now picked by 2 tanks. Plasma Wolf is going to have to re-queue an engineer out to that side. If we take a look at the total number of factories, that is going to place us at 7 for Plasma Wolf. And then if we look up at Mephi, there's 7 just in the core base, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, with an additional 5 building as planned. This is going to turn into sheer production hell, and Mephi is far and away ahead on his build power. Looks like Plasma Wolf is already dropping that gun upgrade, which may or may not be super advisable since he is about to lose an expansion to Mephi. Why upgrade your ACU when you can just build double the amount of tanks as your opponent? Who needs the double DPS on the ACU? Plasma struggling to get enough power generators down to feed his upgrade path, and he is going to need to build some more factories at some point. Point defense are not going to sustain you. Also bear in mind, there is no scouting being done, so Plasma Wolf has no clue whatsoever how many land factories are built on the other side. He's finally queued up another group of factories. That's one straight pull across the center. I'm going to add an additional 8 to his queue as the gun upgrade pushes up on 60% completion. Over on the left-hand side, a little bit of a raid pushing around the outside edge. I think he may be able to pick off these engineers, which would be a valuable kill indeed, stopping that power generator build. But since there's a bunch of engineers out reclaiming, all he's got to do is grab another pair and draw out another ring of power generators. Mephi continuing to scale his production to ludicrous degrees as Plasma Wolf only devotes 2 engineers out of his total bunch to building factories. You can see that Mephi actually has 5 engineers building land factories, and he has queued an air factory so that he can get intel on the other side. Plasma is about to get himself forced into a corner here, but with that gun commander moving forward, he may be able to put a stop to things. Looks like Mephi is not going for an upgrade quite yet, content to stand in the middle of the wreckage that he has created as the units move by in the background. That's going to be Plasma Wolf closing in on the tanks in the center. Depending on how well Plasma fronts this ACU, he may be able to gain the upper hand on unit count once again, but that is going to be a bit up in the air since he has not even reached engagement range. If Mephi's paying attention, he knows that there is a gun upgrade on the front because the ACU fired about 4 shots to try and kill that Artie that was dodging out of the way. Left-hand side showing that even on the scale of hundreds of units, a handful of 5 or 6 can still make a difference. We're about to see these 4 tanks now, and 1 artillery claim another valuable chunk of build power and stop the progression of another queue of factories. Looks like these have now ceased production, and we've got 2 more factories online over here with another long line drawn out. But those are not yet building, so that could be a bit of a problem for Plasma. If we queue back over here, Plasma's at 35,720 with 21 tanks on the map. Mephi, on the other hand, at 46 and 23 tanks and Arnie with 43 and 780 mass and power income. 10,000 reclaim. Plasma on 7,000. So Mephi very, very slow on the start, but it was a calculated move, and now he is just moving in to crush everything with the sheer quantity of units that he now has on the field. Point defense on the front are going to slow things down just a little bit, providing a little bit of leeway against the incoming forces. On the right-hand side, excellent squash of the run-by, but a bomber is now up in the center, going to cause some issues, seeing as there is not an air factory in the field. That means Plasma's going to have to mix mobile anti-air in or build stationary anti-air turrets, which will further bite into his mass income and also tie up valuable build power, which could be either reclaiming or building more factories. Plasma stepping up to the front, Mephi having to pause his gun upgrade at 17% due to lack of power. He is, however, going to be able to maintain a sufficient number of units to make a push on the south. 2 bombers in the air now with an air scout hovering overhead to see exactly what is going on as yet more factories come into existence. I'm going to get over here and see what the factory count is actually. Mephi running a total of 28 land factories. Holy hell, as Plasma is struggling along on a meager 14, literally double the build power of his opponent, as Plasma is now on a ticking clock. About the only thing that could save him right now, oh dear, he is running into a lot of units that he really cannot manage to kill. He's going to have to bring all of his units in to save the ACU as more units mobilize from the north to try and pincer this commander. It does have a veterancy, lots of HP with a good bit of regen, but look at the artillery just shredding the HP on that commander. Mephi does have the gun upgrade completed. Now Plasma down to 2600 HP, which is not where you want to be when you're about to have to fight an enemy gun comm. Second vet gonna pull him out of harm's way. Plasma calling out, what a crap day as he continues to be bombarded. Units are going to break to the other side, trying to pincer those units. What I was about to say is one of the few things that could save him at this point is pushing T2 on a factory, getting Ilshis out and kiting all of these units to death. But I think that is a moot point now, as bombers are killing off the build power and Plasma Wolf detonates under a hail of artillery. Mephi taking a strong win on that one. Lessons to take away from this game. Start out like Plasma, I think. He had a lot of early units in the field. He had a good amount of early reclaim. But bear in mind, Mephi, with a little bit slower expansion and a lot more build power on the field, was able to bring online so many land factories that in the end, it did not work out well for Plasma. You've got to get those units in the field. Brink, check your pop filter, please. I will check it. Let me move that back there. Sorry, guys. And we'll find ourselves another game. We're going to move back up to the winner's bracket now. We've got Blast Chilled versus Templar. And on a quite unique map, I must say. It's called Owly Cliffs. And the cliff's name is appropriate, seeing as you gotta build on all the cliffs to be able to make this game work. I'm eager to see what the build orders for these guys are, because there is a distinct lack of mass extractors on this map. Templar in the north, Drew Aeon, he is going land first, adjacent to the Hydro, and he's got that one mass extractor building. Looks like he is going to walk his ACU down, pick up the reclaim, several 5 mass rocks here, and get the additional mass extractor up before moving his ACU over to this edge. That is going to abuse the longer build range on the commander, allowing for building these without dropping things. You'll also be able to hopefully move over this way and edge build a land factory up on the top plateau, where you'll be able to take 3 additional mass extractors in. This one, though, is going to have to be dropped. There is a moat. It is a huge terrain height change, and there's no free space to build a factory. Blast Shield on the south side is going for a land factory, immediate push on the Hydro with a second land factory building. He's going to move up and grab the reclaim and get this mass extractor, I think, yep, with the ACU before moving up into the center. So Blast Shield taking a little bit of a different path. This map does look like a 5-kilometer close quarters, and you are going to have to fight tooth and nail for map control the entire time, because mass extractors are at a premium. Looks like there's been a requeue of the orders. Templar going for a second air factory, oddly enough. At 5 mass income, he is sustaining himself with a bit of manual reclaim. More coming in right there as that engineer is going to find its way over towards this mass extractor and then the edge-built land factory that I discussed before. It's awesome to see these guys adjusting their builds on the fly to compensate for the needs that they see coming up. So we do have zeroed out mass income for Blast Shield as he is building another set of power generators for a third air factory. I was about to ask, why on earth are you going for more power generators when you're already overflowing 100 power? And that is because of the air factory. And then we've got a fourth land factory coming online. More reclaim happening up on this side manually with an engineer coming in. I must say that Templar actually looks like he's got a better plan moving forward than Blast Shield does. He does have the same mass income, the same power income currently, but he has a bomber at his disposal, which could cause some serious havoc if he's able to pick off some of these expansioneers. Because on this map, those engineers pulling in that reclaim is incredibly critical to your early game. So the loss of this engineer is going to hurt like a son of a diddly to Blast Shield as long as the cliff doesn't absorb the impact. And what on earth was the bomber bombing there? I don't even know. It looks like he placed an attack ground order there. And now he's going to miss the engineer entirely. No! That was a misclick for the ages. The bomber now coming in, but the engineer is moving and he snagged it, eliminating a little bit of wreckage there as well. It'd also be lovely to see him pick up those two engineers in the base, maybe one of these on the outside edge. ACU's meeting in the middle. Templar able to snag a fair bit of reclaim there, going back for the rest of that 300 mass boulder as his first tank dies to the Tham coming in. One thing to remember about the Aeon, once you get into that close engagement range, your tanks are helpless. So you do not want to close in to range. There's the bomb on the other engineer as the bomber starts to take some fire from an enemy interceptor. Another engineer going, no, that was a clean dodge. I think an unintentional one, but a clean dodge nonetheless, as that bomber is finally shot down. Well done on that early pick. Templar now slightly behind, Blast Shield up because of the two mass extractors right here and a third over on this side. But Templar is going to come back up into range shortly. Both players roughly even on score. The advantage here being that Templar has succeeded in edge building a land factory on his plateau. He is going tank first to help and deny any future incursions that might possibly come. That is going to net him 3 relatively well-protected mass extractors that will be somewhat impervious to assaults as long as he can prevent drops on the upper plateau. We do have a raid coming in for the home base. Blast Shield, of course, knowing where Templar's ACU was all the way over on this side, decided to go for a full run by. If these Auroras could possibly just pull back and maintain a safe distance, they would be able to easily negate the Thams. But losses aside, that is still going to be a successful denial of major damage. No engineers lost that I can see. Nothing terribly disrupted other than the ACU being momentarily out of place. We do have an engineer down for Templar on the front line, though. That is not an especially fantastic thing. And he is going to lose an additional mass extractor on this edge. Blast Shield did get his additional mass extractor there. I think edge built by an engineer that came to build this one. So that is a clean kill there. T1 artillery can kill that, but tanks cannot. So something to bear in mind for your raiding composition. You definitely do need T1 artillery on this. And Templar is going to start a gun upgrade. And notice that he has cleared quite a bit of income, 280 power anyway, before he started that gun upgrade. We'll let him slide. He is not going to stall, so better than several of the other people we've watched in this tournament thus far anyway. Blast Shield is going to move his ACU up and reclaim this factory. Need to get an engineer out, yo. Build the engineer. You still have time But no, he has gone combat units only out of that factory, and that is going to result in the loss of build potential on the plateau. Such a wasted effort there. He will be able to deny the ACU building anything on that edge, but it's going to be rather difficult to claim that now. Looks like an engineer edge building a factory here. That looks like a very nice little protected area. Well picked by Blast Chilled. An excellent location to go for. Speed upgrade just about to finish on Templar's ACU. Of course, you don't really need the range as much, seeing as he's not facing Auroras. But that speed is going to double the damage output of the ACU, making it a very capable combat unit indeed, as Blast Chilled pushes into the base once again. Leave the ACU on the front. The ACU is going to take an eternity to reach there. You need to just go back with your tank forces. ACU wading into the Thams on this center field, dealing out damage left and right. If he can win this and then get the reclaim, he might be able to build himself out of this situation. As Thams park in the back, Blast Shield is going to take an air win. He's got double the amount of interceptors and now is going to be able to start picking off power generators as well. Looks like Templar stopped air production in order to get that upgrade on the ACU more quickly, then failed to restart production after he was finished. So that is going to be a rather unhealthy loss there. But Templar does have a nice little reclaim field for himself in the middle. Down to 5 mass per tick though, which is not an easy thing to come back from. Blast Shield at 23 mass per tick. Looks like we've got 6 factories running happily. 5 land factories, 1 air. And then an additional 2 land factories on the front end. That's going to be quite nice indeed for Blast Shield, as he succeeds in eradicating the Hydro from existence with strategically placed Thams. I think that that is going to be GG for Templar. I thought that with the reclaim from the front, he might be able to make a good effort for himself, but with the additional loss of the Hydro, he will now lack the power to do anything really at all with the income that he has. He's going to have to go back to building engineers. I hope he does so quickly, and he is. 43% there as we key back over. He is stalled for 11 mass, but he will be able to reclaim all of these tank wrecks and bump that up at least momentarily. If he can get 1 reclaiming engineer out here, attack moved there, and then the 2nd and 3rd engineers rebuild the mass extractors and whatnot, I think he'll be at least hopefully on his way to a remedy. But I now see bombers over on the left and horrible, horrible things happening to his base. So I think at this point he is committed to the dive. He's going to see what he can get done against his opponent with the gun upgrade that he has, but I fear that it will not be enough considering the fact that there's about 40 T1 units right here in the middle. Let's actually get an exact count. Yeah, right at 45 actually on the front line, which is way too much for an ACU to take on, regardless of the gun upgrade. He's going to walk back a little too straight of a step, take a couple artillery shots, and then get pinned against the wall by a handful of Thams moving in. Templar are going to try to hug this little crater in the cliff here in an effort to block some of the incoming fire, but alas, it shall not be enough. Templar is going to detonate, taking all of the enemy forces with him. But that is the end of it. Blast Shield throwing out the GG there, taking the victory and moving on through the winner's bracket. I like this map, Owly Cliffs. It is very different and it pushes a player to do the best that they can. I don't know, early on in the tournament, the term low skill maps was being thrown around, but I think it takes a lot of effort and a lot of knowledge in how to get a build order to work, how to properly appropriate or apportion resources for the production of factories, when to get your factories, when to get your build power, where to get the reclaim, especially when the calculations are being made on the fly, because most of these players have not played these maps before. So it's a pleasure to see, even when sometimes it does turn into steamroll. We get to see new stuff, we get to see new build orders, and see how players handle having only 2 mass extractors in their core base. That is a different one. Well played. Since we don't get to see new maps terribly often, I figured I would cast another matchup on Alley Cliffs. Now this one is between Ajax and Bulldozer, and instead of getting the Auroras in this match, we have the classic Cybran UEF match. This is going to be probably the 2 most well-balanced versus each other factions that are in the game on a hell of a difficult map to actually play out. So Ajax is on the south side, 2100 rated, but do not fear, Bulldozer is actually 1900 ladder rated, even though he is 1600 global. So I think we will see a relatively decent match here. Land Factory first with a power generator and a mass extractor, engineer pulling out to build the hydro. This is something I saw one of the other players do as well. So Ajax actually building the hydro with the ACU, skipping town with the engineer in order to get more things done. So he's initiating the build that he can't with his ACU, and then pushing the engineer out to make the maximum use of his available build power to reach out into the map. That is actually quite a nice build. I approve heartily. Bulldozer is 2 engineers up as well, but has got a raiding party out. So that hunter is going to have a scout tagging along with it. It's going to move out into the center to try and ping this engineer that he has foreseen coming to the middle to get those large 300 mass rocks. He's going to go 3 land factories right off the bat with a power generator after the second one. And then on the left-hand side, we've got a single engineer going for 2 additional mass extractors, looping around the front edge for manual reclaim, and getting all of this stuff in hand. Very efficient use of the build power there. And then another Mantis pulling out to guard the gap right here, as a second Mantis moves over to the right-hand edge. Now, Mech Marines versus Hunters, the Mech Marines should win. They're just straight up statted better. However, with a little bit of micro, the Mech Marines miss. And as you can see there, this Hunter is relatively successfully facing off versus 2 Mech Marines. And it is going to succeed and pull a kill on the other engineer. You can see the engineer built a wall in between it and the Hunter to block a handful of shots, and then was able to reclaim the Hunter. Well done on Ajax's part with the denial there on that raid. Mantis going to lay in some hurt on a Mech Marine there, taking about half damage as the Mech Marine dodged a few shots here and there. But Bulldozer is going to be able to move up to the front with the ACU, and Bulldozer snagging at least one of the rocks on the front end. Now it is going to have to move into the range of these Mech Marines to get reclaim on the second rock, but it is going to succeed in pulling at least 75% of the mass out of that rock before it dies. So Bulldozer coming away with a healthy bit of reclaim there at the beginning, 700 to 1,000 on Ajax. Wow, okay. So Ajax has already got his engineer over to the other side here. Did not succeed in reclaiming all of his rocks, but he's reclaimed all of these rocks. That is where his extra mass has come from, I think. Yes. So all of those rocks, all of these rocks that exist here. Oh, yes. I did not even see that in the first game. So on the left-hand side, we've got a Mantis versus 2 heavily damaged Mech Marines, which is going to come out victorious, I do believe. And then on the right-hand side, Bulldozer successfully raiding as he is being raided on the left. So this is an absolutely critical pile of rocks that I think Bulldozer has completely looked over in the early portion of this game. So we've got 3 Mantis in the back now. Apparently, if you stand them back far enough away from the cliff, they can, in fact, attack that mass extractor. I think that might have been intentional, because the rocks are kind of rounded off on that side. They will be able to knock out that mechs and then the other, reducing Ajax's income as Bulldozer once again briefly takes the lead in score and is then immediately surpassed once again by Ajax. Ajax does have an air factory. And he has queued scouts and interceptors, which means that, yes, Bully Dozer is going to be queuing an air factory of his very own in order to deny any shenanigans that may come from that. Bully Dozer getting very aggressive with his ACU, but in return, he is going to own the entire center, all of the reclaim that comes with that, and 4 mass extractors. Is that actually... that is an interesting pathway there. I think that cannot actually join. You can't get units down there, but you will be able to shell this T1 mass extractor with T1 artillery that is on the edge there. Very interesting how this map is cut away in place. It does essentially boil down to 3 choke points, but with the plateau play and with all of the other things going on, it's very different. Very different. Okay. Transport was gotten. Engineers are now on the plateau, so Ajax is going to own both sides of the map while Bully Dozer owns the middle. So that's going to be 8 mass extractors on the outside with, let's call it, 8 mass extractors in the middle. Actually, it is literally 8 mass extractors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So as long as Ajax holds full map control on the plateaus, and Bully Dozer holds full map control of the center, they can have exactly even incomes. I would just be concerned about Ajax's safety with all of these units on his doorstep. Alright, transport headed out to the very upper end as a land factory comes online for Bully Dozer on the hill. So Bully Dozer is actually getting the initiative up here. He may be able to build combat units out of this, although he is going engineer first. Transport will get a scout on that. If he goes combat units, he will be able to deny this, but we do have a point defense building immediately off this T1 engineer. So that NG is going to move out. Looks like we got a second engineer. Reclaim order may or may not be able to pick up that NG, and it is. So that is going to be the end of Ajax's play for the top plateau, although no, it is not. He is going to get 2 engineers on the upper end and build land factories up that away. We've also got an edge build happening for Bully Dozer on the left plateau, but it looks like that engineer is going to get a handle on it as well. Nice little pinch here by Bully Dozer, was able to kill off all those strikers in that little hole in the wall there. Bully Dozer now getting hit by T1 bombers. He does have mobile anti-air in his mix, so he should be fine. Also has E storage for overcharges. So if he gets in range of the point defense, 1 blow from the ACU and a couple hits from a Medusa will eliminate that point defense without too much of an issue. Looks like Ajax was going to make a play for the left-hand side, but now seeing how many units are over here, he is going to go up the center instead. That is going to run him directly into an oncoming force from Bully Dozer. Ajax now down 21 to 29 on income, but up about 20 on power. So Engineer has made it over to this side, which is going to start reclaiming the factory. Tank coming out, though, able to save that one just barely. Mantis on the front line now engaging with another tank. But 2 strikers on the front will be able to overcome that. No, cannot afford to lose an engineer. But the second factory was built. So now the build power is doubled on the top edge. Ajax should be able to come out ahead on that. And Mantis out of the factory is going to lock Ajax out of the south side as well. Dear Lord, this is the apocalypse coming down on Ajax's head as Bully Dozer plows into the base with a backing of about 30 Mantis and his ACU at full combat strength. That is going to be GG. Bully Dozer pulling a brilliant set of raids and denials there, doing just enough to keep Ajax off his balance. Pull in, kill the Hydro, eliminating that critical source of power, and now the build power is going to go down. As long as Bully Dozer does not make a misstep, he has won this game, and by misstep I mean getting into an engagement with enemy tanks while the factories are meat shielding and losing about half of his own T1 units. Ajax here doing a very good job of focus firing down the units with his ACU in an attempt to reduce the total damage that this oncoming force can do while keeping his own units in the shelter of his factories. Bully Dozer, though, I think just has too many dang Mantis to be stopped. And an overcharge, taking out 2 additional power generators and the mass extractor at the core of the base. Ajax still doing a little raiding here and there, but mostly now consigned to his base with efforts from his APM. Looks like we got more power generators going up in the back to try and maintain the build here as he struggles to reduce the amount of units in his home territory. But at half HP, I think it is all lost for him. Mantis now closing in for the focus fire. Bully Dozer taking the victory with his Mantis swarm. Ajax did win the northern plateau at least. Southern plateau is going to go to Bully Dozer, who now has about 75% map control, and the rest Ajax cannot even keep a grip on. It's like Ajax is fleeing for the water over here, although I'm not sure. That might be able to hide his ACU completely. Are you kidding me? Well, it should be shallow enough that it can be ground fired by T1 artillery, so I don't think that it's actually going to be an issue to kill. But perhaps he shall work on some sort of snipe attempt from the plateau. Some kind of cheese to be able to win this game still. ACU headed down in, and it is indeed. Nope, you cannot get down into the water. Your head remains above. Ajax throwing out the GG and bailing. Well played to both of these guys. That's exactly why I wanted to watch another round on this map, because that is some good non-standard gameplay you get to see when it's both a fresh map to the players and a difficult map to play. Well done again. We're going to bail on this and go find ourselves a different game. That is going to wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.